In this video, we're going to briefly go over ethos, logos, and pathos. And we're going to refer to the story that we glued in our interactive notebook. First thing we're going to talk about is ethos. And the reason we color-coded ethos blue is because it is a writer's credibility, so we give that writer a blue stamp of approval. And what we mean by credible is the writer actually knows what they're talking about. So for example, if we're talking about something to do with health, a credible writer would be a doctor versus maybe a plumber talking about health or a farmer talking about health. Those people aren't credible. So a lot of times an author like Tarshish, we don't know if Tarshish knows anything about anything really, but Tarshish adds to her credibility by quoting people. For example, in our extreme sports passage, the author quoted Jet, a kid that actually got hurt, or Caleb, a kid that actually got hurt. So whenever a writer quotes someone else and that person is credible and they show that they know what they're doing, that adds ethos to the paper, and it's a good thing. So if we take a look at the passage that we highlighted, notice how this, if you read through this passage, this whole passage is about a kid trying to convince or persuade the readers to donate money to people in a foreign country. So he starts out with ethos because he's talking about how he is a kid. He's in 7th grade, so it's proving that he's a kid. And it's also saying that he's an honor student, so we know that he's a pretty smart kid, he's a good kid, so that kind of adds to his credibility. And he goes on to say that he visited this place, so that gives him credibility because he's seen firsthand what it looks like, so that's definitely ethos. Next thing we're going to talk about is logos. And the reason we underlined or color-coded logos yellow is because it's kind of like a light bulb. It's an idea. And logos, what we really focus on is statistics and numbers to prove opinions. So if we say like 90% of the 90% of people recommend the school day be longer, that would be logos because we're talking about 90%. 90% is a lot. Now we have to be careful when we use logos because not all numbers persuade people to do things. For example, if we go back to our Loch Ness Monster article and I say the 1934 picture of the Loch Ness Monster was blurry, notice how 1934 is a number, but that doesn't really prove anything. It just gives us a year. So it's only when numbers prove something. So when we look at this section here, notice how we have 80% of the students. Now that's logos because it proves that's a lot of students. Don't make it to 5th grade. At least 12% of students ages 5 to 14 don't attend school because they must work to help their families make ends meet. This 12%, that's another number. And even though that's kind of a low percentage, if you think about it in a mathematical form, that's still quite a few students who are not able to go to school, like not able to go to school at all. Notice we also have other numbers in here, like 5 to 14. We also have 5th grade. Those numbers wouldn't be logos because they're not used to persuade our readers to do anything. So it's only when numbers are used to persuade readers to do something, that's when it's logos. And our last one is pathos. And the reason we underline pathos or color-coded pathos red is because pathos appeals to the audience's emotions. It makes the writers trying to make the readers feel a certain way for reading their passage. So they maybe are trying to make them feel sad, or they're trying to make them feel happy or socially accepted. In other words, if you don't do this, nobody's going to like you. They're trying to pressure readers, and people use this a lot to persuade people. So there's two instances of persuasion here using pathos. The first one is right here where it says children my age do not have the same education opportunities that we do in the U.S. Makes us feel sad, makes us as readers feel really sad. And also right down here where we highlighted red, many end up having to drop out because they're unable to afford uniforms, books, school fees. That makes us feel sad. And then we feel like we get motivated. So he's telling us how we can help. So my church group is raising money to help families as well as to help these expenses. So we feel like we could be happy if we help these people. Now, a good article or a good writing uses a combination of all three of these. So like when you're looking through an article in Scholastic by Tarshish or someone else, and if you see all three of these, that makes their argument stronger. So if they can use statistics to persuade us, if they can use a little bit of credibility, like quoting people that know what they're doing to persuade us, and they also can appeal to our emotions to make us feel a certain way, that's what makes a good argument. And our goal eventually is to apply this in our writing. So when we argue something, when we go to explain, when we write our blue sentences, Our goal is to apply this to help persuade our readers.